This is sacred ground.
A place where legends are made.
The most historic track in American history.
A new tradition begins as the green flag is about to come out to signal the beginning of the inaugural Brickyard 400.
That was the biggest win of my career. A win here etches your name forever.
This is Indy.
This is the Brickyard.
The Brickyard 400 always seems to come down to a two-man fight. On Sunday, it was Jimmie Johnson and Mark Martin, and the three-time champion Johnson took his third win at Indianapolis, got to do the victory celebration and put that big old kiss on the yard of bricks. And inside our ESPN pit studio, complete with trophy and rather large smile, is the winner of Sunday's race, Jimmie Johnson. Congratulations.
Thank you. What an amazing day. This race means so much to me and so much to our sport. It's just awesome, man. I'm so happy and excited for this victory today.
Hey, you kind of know the drill. We can show a little highlight of the race, help us take
I know how it ends up, so I'm willing to go through it all.
Here we go then. A beautiful day in Speedway, Indiana at the corner of 16th and Georgetown for the 16th running of the Brickyard 400. Little class photo there to start with the trophy on the yard of bricks. Mark Martin, Juan Pablo Montoya on the front row. Just a few laps in, the lead changed hands.
Oh, yeah, so Juan Pablo Montoya just really gets hooked up on the top side of the racetrack, just rockets around the outside of Mark Martin. You see Mark getting loose right there. Takes the lead and leads for 116 laps, looks dominant.
Montoya was out in front for most of the race until it came time to make his final pit stop with 35 laps to go. There are 6 segments on pit road where speeding is measured. He got busted for being too fast in 2 of those 6. So Montoya goes from leading by 5.5 seconds to having to make a pass-through penalty. He was not a very happy camper inside his race car.
We had this in the bag and they screw us because I was not speeding.
So Montoya makes the pass-through. It kicks him back to 12th position. Dale Earnhardt Jr. loses an engine. That saves Montoya from losing more time on the track. But he still really wasn't very happy inside his race car.
Good. I guarantee you, I swear on my children and my wife, I was not speeding. This is the second time this year. In Phoenix, they made a mistake and they admitted afterwards. This is the second time. They better look at that. Tell them to look at it closer because, you know what I mean? I don't think I was speeding and I went through I think I got either oil on the tires or something.
While Montoya tried to figure that out, it put Jimmie Johnson alongside new leader Mark Martin for a restart with 24 to go. Jimmie came out with the top spot.
That's a good spot to be in.
You like looking
I
at that,
wasn't sure
right?
you were talking. I was so busy watching the television.
Final
trying
laps
to
of the
break
race.
the draft here.
All right, then I'll finish this up, and then
Please.
we'll talk to you. Final laps of the race. Mark Martin threw everything he had at Jimmie Johnson, but Jimmie found a way to hold on to the top spot. Coming to the checkered flag, it must have been a great feeling.
Oh, it's such a good feeling. Unfortunately, that 5 car was so close to me, I couldn't really enjoy those final few laps. Mark made me really work for it, and it's just such a pleasure working with him, and having him on the same race team.
Here he is, Jimmie Johnson off the final corner. Now he knows that victory is his. Checkered flag for the 3rd time in the Brickyard 400. Johnson takes the win, leading the final 24 laps of the race. The celebration in victory lane, the burnouts, and yes, the aforementioned smooch on the old yard of bricks. Plus, congratulations in the winner's circle from his teammate Mark Martin, whom he had to fight off so hard to get to plant that big old kiss. Jimmie Johnson, the winner at Indianapolis for 2009. Ready?
That is such a great kiss. I have to say, that is a great kiss.
So, final standings from Sunday's race. Johnson over Martin. Tony Stewart lost 4 spots on an early pit stop and got back to 3rd late in the race. That's where he finished. Brian Vickers with a top 5 spot. You see Montoya wound up finishing 11th. Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch, 2 of the guys racing for a place in the chase, had some troubles. We will talk about them later on. Meantime, let's talk with you about winning this race for a third time. What's it mean to you?
It means the world to me. To be able to perform and win at on the highest level, the highest, the biggest stage in motorsports, track with so much history. It means the world to me and this race team, and I can't thank the fans for supporting our sport like they do. The great sponsors that we have with Lowe's and Chevrolet and Cobalt Tools. The times are tough, and to be able to come out and win at one of our majors and do it in this type of fashion means the world to me.
Jimmy, on these double file restarts, the leader gets an opportunity to start on the bottom or the top of the racetrack. Were you surprised when Mark Martin decided to start on the bottom of the track?
Yes and no. I mean, I wasn't up front on the original start or the restarts that we had to see what lane kind of took off. But I felt like if I could be alongside of Mark off of turn 1, that my line on the outside would work better off of turn 2 for the long back straightaway. And as soon as I came out of 1 through the short chute and he was next to me, I thought, man, I've got it. I've got a shot at this thing. I just need a good turn 2, and I got it. And from there, just had to hold him off.
Well, man, I don't get to do many races, but the ones I do, I end up sitting next to you smelling like champagne and carrying a lot of hardware. You're doing pretty good. Hey, that restart that you were just talking about, in the back of your mind, knowing that you're pretty solid in points, so you could really fly that thing down there, and Mark maybe had to be a little bit more conservative. Were you thinking about that?
I wasn't at the time, but watching the highlights with you guys, Mark got real loose on one of those restarts on the inside of 1, and maybe that was going through his mind and just a little cautious through there. And if he could have cleared me through 1, it would have been a different story. And I think if I was leading the race, I probably would have taken the inside line with what I knew going into it. My thoughts were, if you could clear the guy in the short chute, it was yours to be on the inside. If you couldn't clear the guy on the outside would beat you down the back straightaway. So I may have made a mistake, or maybe Mark was a little cautious because of his situation. But either way, it worked out great for us.
How stressful were those final laps?
Man, I would put in a good turn and look in the mirror, and he's closer. I'm like, when's he going to give up? So, but he was better than me in 1 and 2, and I was better than him in 3 and 4. And I just had to really be smart through 1 and 2 and not make a mistake, and then get all I could at the other end of the track to try to get some distance on him.
And last question, in kind of a yes or no fashion. If Montoya didn't have his problem, did you think you had something you could do with him?
Absolutely.
That's what
it doesn't matter. The trophy is right here.
That's what I thought he'd say completely. Congratulations. We were talking baseball earlier. You're batting .375 at the Brickyard. That's pretty good for a career average.
And I just hoped that I could race here when I was a kid, and to take 3 of these trophies out was pretty cool.
3 out of the last 4.
That's even better. Back to back, too.
There you go. Jimmie Johnson, winner of the 2009 Brickyard 400 at Indianapolis. Still to come on NASCAR Now from the Brickyard, Juan Pablo Montoya, so dominant through the day, but that speeding penalty took him out of contention. We'll hear from him. We thought Tony Stewart would be a contender for the win all day, but Stewart never really able to challenge for the lead. His day and the days of some of the other top finishers in a moment. And Kyle Busch, his chances to make the chase took a beating when his car took a beating against the Brickyard wall. That when NASCAR Now returns to Indy.
NASCAR Now, brought to you by Citi. Citi never sleeps.
Juan Pablo Montoya dominated the Brickyard 400, took the lead from Mark Martin on a restart at lap 5, ended up leading 116 of 160 laps, but got a pit road speeding penalty. After that, his final pit stop with 35 to go. Montoya came off pit road 12th after the drive-through penalty. He wound up finishing the race in 11th spot. Certainly a dominating day for performance, but a frustrating day at Indianapolis. Nicole Mansky joins us now from out by the Yard of Bricks. Nicole, what did Juan Pablo have to say after the day was done?
Well, he may not have ended up in victory lane today, but according to Tony Stewart, Juan Pablo Montoya was the class of the field all day long. No one even was able to challenge him. And those 116 laps that Montoya led, that's the most led by a driver in this race ever to not go on and win the Brickyard 400. But there is a bright side for Montoya, who says, at least we now know the direction in which our team is heading.
It kind of sucks, but it's what it is. Everybody at the Target Chevy did an amazing job. I thought it was on the speed. We got lights. I was on the lights every time. And actually, that lap came in slower than the previous one, and they said, you're speeding.
Juan's a great competitor, and you can't, in the heat of the battle, you really can't take those things too seriously. And I know his disappointment, and he should be disappointed. He had the best car out there today, led the most laps, and surely deserved to win on that part of it. But, you know, you have to have a perfect day a lot of times.
It's electronic, so it's got 7 timelines, and obviously one of them was sped, so it is what it is. Just got to take the positives out of it and move on.
And after the race, Jimmie Johnson, Alan, was asked if he would have had anything if things had remained the same for Juan Pablo Montoya. Johnson's response was, I don't know, but I do know this. I have the trophy. Alan?
Yeah. All right, Nicole, thank you. I don't know of anybody who could relate to how Juan Pablo Montoya must be feeling better than Rusty Wallace, because only one other guy besides Montoya has led over 100 laps of this race and not one, and that's our buddy here. What's he feeling?
He feels like crap right now. He really does. He feels so bad. It's unbelievable. I really feel bad for him because he dominated throughout the race, and have a mistake of his own doing and cost the whole team and himself that victory. He's going to have a lot of sleepless nights. There's no doubt about that.
And guys, you know, you heard Brian Patty saying don't speed. Heard him say that coming in. They said it's all electronic. They've got these tacks, green, red, but set too close to the limit. You know, NASCAR gives you 5 miles an hour. They were over 5 miles an hour faster than what pit road speed limit was, and that is just cutting it too close. When you've got a car that fast and you've got a 5-second lead, man, you got to give yourself a bigger margin.
You can't take that chance, is basically what you're saying. And it wasn't just one little segment of pit road. The Indianapolis pit road is broken into 6 timing segments. NASCAR says Montoya was over the 5-mile-an-hour buffer on 2 of the 6.
You just, again, you've got a 5-second lead. I mean, we're talking about backing it down a couple hundred RPM here. It just, man, with a car that fast, you just don't have to play it that close.
So Juan Pablo Montoya, instead of kissing the bricks, winds up finishing 11th at Indianapolis on Sunday. Still to come on NASCAR Now from the Brickyard, we'll talk about some of the other guys who had strong runs, top 5 finishes, Brian Vickers, Greg Biffle, and others. That when NASCAR Now continues its post-race coverage from the Brickyard. And later, we heard from Jimmie Johnson once. The champ, the winner of the race, will join us again. Still to come in NASCAR Now. It's the 48 that is in the #1 spot on the Indianapolis scoring pylon once again this year after the Brickyard 400. Jimmie Johnson winning the 16th running of the Brickyard 400 on Sunday afternoon at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, continuing Hendrick Motorsports' dominance of the Brickyard and giving Jimmie a chance to put another big old kiss on the yard of bricks. Mark Martin started on the pole, gave up the lead to Juan Pablo Montoya at lap 5, got it back when Montoya got penalized, but was passed by Jimmie Johnson and couldn't get back around.
I was beating Jimmie pretty bad off of turn 2, and I knew that for the last, 15 laps for sure. But he was beating me pretty bad off of 4, so I was going to have to make it happen off of 2, and I made some great runs, but I really thought several other times I was going to hit the wall over there, and I absolutely could not go any faster. In fact, I can't believe I didn't. The third to last lap and the last lap, and both, I went through there beyond my good judgment to get those runs. This tire and the way it reacted was very consistent through the run. The track was very consistent today. The balance didn't change on the cars very much. So pretty much what you had when you started, if you were good, you were going to be good. And if you were not good, it was probably going to be a challenge to get real good, on the pit stop. Well, I got a reasonable start there, and I was really looking optimistic, but I never got quite clear him on the straightaway, and then he got the side draft. I just pulled him completely up beside me, and I just didn't manage to get a good enough jump. I tried to get a good one, and it was good, but I needed another 3 feet to clear him. It's pretty much what I expected, and it was an awesome team effort by everybody at the 5 car, and I'm just a lucky guy to get to drive it.
So Mark Martin explaining why he ended up finishing second on this day. Couple things. First of all, when Juan Pablo Montoya got by Mark at lap 5, Mark just couldn't hang with him.
No, he couldn't. Montoya was just so strong this afternoon. It was incredible. I mean, he was just out there going, and it was his sweet spot of the day. Everybody has a good day, and Montoya had that day going on, and he just blew it with the pit road penalty.
But even beyond that, talking about Mark I thought Mark would be a lot closer to Montoya than he was. Juan had a 7-second lead at one point.
Yeah, I think that we all really misjudged how fast the 42 car was. They actually parked it early yesterday afternoon, so that should have been a signal. But the 5, the 48, the 39, the 14, there were a lot of cars in there real close. So when the 42 dropped out, I really thought Mark was going to win the race.
But it came down to the restart with 24 laps to go. Mark, as the leader, had lane choice with NASCAR shootout-style restarts, and he chose the inside lane that put Jimmy Johnson outside of him, and Jimmy got around.
Yeah, I would have never done that. I mean, looking back at it, I mean, Mark probably wouldn't have done it either, but Jimmy had so much momentum on the outside of that racetrack with those fresh tires on the restart that he was able to keep it hooked up and then drive off. And once he cleared Mark, it was all over because that aero push kicks in and that track positions everything in the world, and that's what really killed him.
Well, let's talk about the final 20 laps or so. Mark was closing on Jimmy at times, and at other times he was falling back. Talk about what Mark was trying to do in those final laps to find a way around the 48.
Well, as you're closing, you get close, you start to use that right front tire, you realize you can't get up there, you back off a little bit, you cool it off, and you make another run on him. He kept making runs at him, and you can see they were both driving the heck out of those cars, where the 5 car was a little bit better off of 2, the 48 car was a little bit better off of 4. They were just so equal, he couldn't catch him.
Now, you hit the nail on the head right there, Ray, because the only place that Martin could really catch him, Alan, was off of turn 2. He tried repeatedly off of turn 2 to get that run. He got up to his bumper a couple times. In fact, a couple times I thought he was going to pull it off and have a big drag race down the back straightaway. But Jimmy Johnson was just too tough and held him off.
And we heard Jimmy say just a little bit ago how stressful it was knowing that Mark was back there behind him. But Mark Martin having to settle for second place money at Indianapolis in this year's Brickyard 400. Now, another guy we thought might contend for the win was Tony Stewart. He started 7th, moved up to 3rd, fell back to 7th on a pit stop, clawed his way back up to 3rd. But that's it. No farther ahead than 3rd for Tony Stewart. His comments after the race on not winning the Brickyard.
We ran 3rd at the Brickyard 400. There's no shame in that. I mean, 43 cars and we ran 3rd today. So, you know, to come here with a new package, a new crew chief, and to run 3rd our first time here together, I think that's a lot to be proud of. I mean, we're doing the things that we need to do. It didn't get us those 10 bonus points, but you know, it may not come down to those 10 points at the end of the year.
Right behind Stewart at the checkers was Greg Biffle. He started back in 12th spot, picked up a few positions on the lap 58, caution flag pit stops, got his way up into the 4th position. Not a bad day for Biff, but probably not what he was looking for when the green flag waved.
It's big, you know, but I think of the little things. I think of that 5 points I gave to Tony Stewart, just having to, you know, let him go to save enough fuel. But with 4 laps to go, and we'll have to wait and see. We'll check our fuel and see if we could have made it. But we're happy to get back on track. 4th place, we're pretty happy.
And 5th place went to Brian Vickers. Vickers got up to 3rd, fell back to 4th, got up to 3rd, fell back to 4th. He and Tony Stewart went back and forth for a while. Jimmy Johnson got around the Vic at lap 110. Brian hung on in the end for a top 5 finish.
The big picture was a good day. You know, we couldn't risk ruining a good points day to go chase the bricks, but man, it'd been nice to win. So proud of the Red Bull crew. We had a great car all day. I think if we'd have got the track position, we would have had a shot at it, but it wasn't for lack of a great pit crew. They did a phenomenal job all day on pit road. There, that last run, we had a left rear going down, and it was pretty low by the end of the run. We were lucky to hang on to 5th, but it is what it is.
So thoughts on Brian Vickers, Tony Stewart, Greg Biffle, the finishers in the 3, 4, and 5 positions. A couple of other guys wanted to talk about. Joey Logano, what a stellar run for him.
Really impressed with him. You know, he qualified mid-pack, rookie guy, first time here. Has to go to the rear of the field this morning because of an engine change, and drives up all the way up to 12th, passed probably the most cars of anybody today, and had a real good race. Had a heck of a battle with Juan Pablo there towards the end of the race for that 11th to 12th spot.
Yeah, those last 20 laps or so, he was kind of Juan Pablo's aggravation point, because he was already aggravated when he came off pit road for the penalty, and he just couldn't get around Logano. But a great job by the youngster today in his first Indy try. And you had an eyeball out for Kevin Harvick's finish today.
I really did. Kevin Harvick did a fantastic job out there today. RCR has been struggling with their cars of late, and today was a really turnaround, I thought, for Richard Childress Racing. Kevin Harvick was no doubt the strongest out of that whole camp, and Kevin just flew out there today. He run 6. I was looking at his lap times, and he had speed speeds that were quick enough to win this race, but he just couldn't get the track position.
Jeff Burton also had a great run going in the RCR camp until he had a problem and had to make an extra pit stop late. So Kevin Harvick with a good finish for the Childress team today, 19th to 6th position in the final rundown. When NASCAR now continues from the Brickyard, Juan Pablo Montoya, we've documented what happened to him. We heard from the driver. We'll hear from some of the crew a little bit later on in a Marty Smith report. And up next, Jimmie Johnson's back with us to talk some more about his big win in the 16th running of the Brickyard 400. I think I just might ask him what that brick tastes like.
Three-time NASCAR Sprint Cup champion Jimmie Johnson is now a three-time winner of the Brickyard 400. Johnson led only one time all day long, but it was for the final 24 laps, and now there's the ceremonial kissing of the bricks. And oh, by the way, Jimmie Johnson becomes the first driver to win this race in back-to-back years. Now, Jimmie Johnson did not lead the most laps, but he led the most important lap, the last one.
And Chad Knaus, his crew chief, did such a great job of keeping Jimmie in contention, made great adjustments all day long, great pit stops, and it allowed Jimmie to do what he does best, and that's get up on that steering wheel.
Yeah, and these guys showed once again why they're the three-time defending champions of this sport. They do a great job of adjusting the car, and then Jimmie Johnson did his job, got out in front of Mark Martin, was able to hold him off.
And the driver who led the most laps, well, a former Indy 500 winner, Juan Pablo Montoya. Back on lap number 5, Mark Martin bobbles. Montoya would take the lead and set sail, leading now for 3 times for 116 laps the rest of the way until the final pit stop as he comes down pit road to make the stop. Now, when he leaves, they're going to tell him he was speeding.
Dude, I guarantee you, I swear on my children and my wife, I was not speeding. This is the second time this year in Phoenix they made a mistake and they admitted afterwards.
NASCAR discussing with his crew chief Brian Patty, but the penalty was going to be invoked, and back down pit road would come Juan Pablo Montoya for the pass-through penalty. Montoya would restart in 12th position and finish the day 11th. Now, Dale Jarrett, you've been in his shoes. You've had the best race car here in the past and not won the race. It's got to be disheartening.
Yeah, it's very cruel business sometimes, and especially in a big race like this. In '98, we had a fast car. We ran it out of gas. As we said many times during this telecast, you have to do everything right on this day. They made one small mistake, and it cost them.
Well, one thing they did right is they had a setup under this car that would really work out front. He got behind after this penalty and only made up one spot in those last 30 laps.
So it was misery for Montoya, but celebration for Jimmie Johnson, as Johnson now has won the Brickyard 400 for a 3rd time.
All right, Doc, thanks. Since his rookie season in the Sprint Cup Series 2002, Jimmie Johnson has won 43 times, nearly 20 more than his next closest competitor. He also becomes the first driver to win back-to-back Brickyard 400s and has now won this race in 3 of the last 4 seasons. The Brickyard 400 winner for a 3rd time, Jimmie Johnson, didn't lead until there were only 25 laps to go in this race. When did you feel you had a winning car, and when did you feel you were going to win?
Chad kept telling me that our lap times were good, and I didn't qualify well. I made a mistake in qualifying that had us further back. But I was passing cars, moving forward, and I kept hearing the lap times, and I knew we were competitive. And he was maybe doing a little selling as well. He was telling me that if we get you clean air, you're going to have a shot at this thing. And on that restart, when I lined up next to Mark, I thought, man, I've got a 1 or 2 lap window here to try to get by him. And hopefully I can do it. And I think if I'm in the lead, I can hang on. And after I ran about a lap or 2 in front of Mark, I felt really good about things. And then I maybe stretched it out a little bit on him. And then he started coming back. And at that point, I didn't know until I came off at turn 4 the last time that I had it won.
You're 3 for 8 here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That's pretty remarkable. What's that say about you?
It's amazing to hear that stat because, we look at the 3 wins, but I've had some miserable runs here and crashes and a lot of different problems. So I'd say the end of the race in 2005, or I guess I didn't make it to the end, but before I crashed in 05, something finally clicked and I understood how to drive this track. And it's so different than other tracks we run at. Came back in 06 and won, and then I've been able to win 2 times since then. But this is a tough racetrack, and the fact you only run here once makes it even that much more difficult to understand it. And now that I've can know the line I need and the rhythm I need to drive this track, we can set the car up to that, and we've had great success.
That's what you have to say about you being 3 for 8 here and winning 2009's Brickyard 400. Here's what some of your competitors had to say about you winning. It's good.
He was better than I was off of 4, and I was better than he was off of 2. So, I knew I had to make it happen off of 2, but wadding it up wasn't a great idea either. And both of us were driving for all we were worth, and I couldn't get him.
We were able to pass cars today, and there weren't a lot of people on the racetrack that could actually pass. So that was a nice, reassuring feeling once we started the race, and we could see him start to march his way up there. So we knew if we could get out front towards the end that we would have something for him.
Great day for Jimmy and Chad and all the guys on that Lowe's Chevrolet and Hendrick Motorsports. I really thought Mark was going to get it, but it's great to see it come home to Rick and another Brickyard 400, which is pretty spectacular.
I'm actually just grateful that I had a chance to race for the win. Would have liked to have won it, but got beat by Superman.
Superman from your teammate.
He's the bionic man.
There you go.
Just
He's
keeps
the
going and
ageless
going.
one. What does a brick taste like?
It's dirty and good at the same time.
It works okay?
It works great.
Do you believe in omens? I mean, you've won this race 2 of the last 3 years. You won the championship. Now, you didn't win this race also the year you won that 3rd championship. Does this race have anything to do with the title?
Yes and no. I think what this race shows is the team or teams that are capable of adjusting on the fly. We only run here once. It's so different than the other tracks we run on. And if you can, with the short amount of practice that we have, get things right and be competitive and win this race, it means that you can take the limited track time we have to all the other tracks and be successful. I think that is the silver lining in it all. It's not going to guarantee us the championship. There's a lot of racing between now and then. But I feel that we're doing things right, and we've got a very good understanding of our race cars.
Before we started this interview, you were just sitting here and we were talking about you're winning this race for a 3rd time. You're saying, I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
It's unbelievable.
Well, what is it about your success that strikes you the most?
I did well in all the other forms of racing growing up, but never had success like this. And to have my career peak at this point at the highest level in motorsports, now 43 wins and 3 Brickyards, a Daytona 500 win, 3 championships. I mean, that's the stuff that I'd open up Stock Car Racing magazine and read about guys like that. I never thought I'd be this guy. So it's just a wild ride, and I'm so blessed and thankful. And I have no clue what's in store for myself and this 48 team in Hendrick Motorsports, but the way it's been going, it's been awfully good, and I hope it's 4 championships in a row.
Last question would be about finding a way to win from behind. You and this team seem to have this remarkable knack for coming from behind for wins. Why?
We've done a very good job of running our race and getting what we can. And I think earlier in the year, I'm as guilty as anyone on the team. Maybe got a little emotional at times and made mistakes, and I made more mistakes this year than I have in any other year. And I think I'm hitting my stride, and the team is as well. That you can only do your best, and you can only give 100%. I know there's some mental coach out there that says, well, that's not good enough. But truthfully, 100% is 100%. And if you step over that line, you bust your butt, you make mistakes, and you don't get the points or the results that you need. So I think what has led to that is we've been very smart, and we've run our race. And if we can continue to do that, getting prepared for the chase, I think we'll come in with a lot of momentum, and then we need to do it for 10 more.
Well, there were no mistakes on this Sunday at Indianapolis. Plenty of opportunities and plenty of pressure in the final laps, but Jimmy Johnson takes home a 3rd trophy. Thanks for sharing the celebration with us.
Awesome. Thank you.
Still to come on the NASCAR Now Brickyard wrap-up, Jeff Gordon, not a factor to win a 5th race today. We'll talk about Gordon's Day in a couple of minutes. And later on, Kyle Busch had some problems in Sunday's race that cost him some ground in the race to the chase. That when NASCAR Now returns. Continuing our NASCAR Now wrap-up of the Brickyard 400. Jimmy Johnson won the 2009 edition on Sunday afternoon. A couple of other guys were not as happy at the end of the day. Denny Hamlin, at 32 laps into the race, came off pit road and then came back to pit road. Some shifter and driveline problems for the 11 car sent him to the garage with a 34th place finish. Then there was Kyle Busch, who at lap 57 hit the wall after the right front went down on his car. Kyle wound up with a 38th place result, and that hurt his chance to grab a place in the chase. Check out the standings for the bubble. Hamlin's okay. He's still 6th in points, 157 to the good. But Kyle Busch falls 4 spots down to 14th, and he's 82 points away from 12th place. Greg Biffle, the beneficiary, moving up 2 spots to 11th. Matt Kenseth still on the bubble with a 68-point edge over David Ruderman. NASCAR Now lead reporter Marty Smith joins us now. Marty, on Countdown before the race, you talked about Kyle Busch in your extensive interview and how he handled adversity. How did he handle adversity today?
Well, Alan, he came into this weekend set to prove not only to himself but also to his team and all the NASCAR fans out there that he was a changed man, that he was more engaged with making this team more cohesive, and that when they did face adversity, we'd see a new Kyle Busch. On Sunday, he took the first step.
Not really sure. Just unfortunate for the Snickers bar hungry Toyota Camry. I mean, we were running decent, you know. We were running there, I think, 15th or something, and had an awesome pit stop on pit road and got up to 7th. Just biding our time running there, and then got stuck behind the 71 there and had to push the right front a little bit. And from right at that point, I just started losing the right front tire, just getting real tight. Had been loose the whole run, so I didn't think I had been abusing it at all, but all of a sudden it just started vibrating, and then for 2 laps, and then blew out. So I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's our cars, the tire, I don't know what.
Crew Chief Steve Addington told me, one thing that Busch told me during the interview this weekend is that he didn't know whether the way that he'd been acting, whether or not his team would, quote, take a bullet for him. I spoke with Steve Addington, his crew chief, after the race, and he told me, Marty, every single one of us would take a bullet for him. The team also told me that he was fully engaged while they were fixing that race car after that blown right front tire. He was pointing different things out he felt needed to be fixed, fully engaged with his teammates, Alan.
Hi, Marty. We heard about Brian Vickers' solid 5th place run earlier in the program. That contract thing for Vickers is still kind of hanging out there.
Indeed it is, and you know, Vickers was extremely frustrated after the race. He said he's tired of having top 3 cars so many weeks and not being able to close the deal. But as far as his contract is concerned, Jay Fry, the team manager for Red Bull Racing, has to speak with the parent company in Austria. That's really the big hang-up. He doesn't think there's any problem whatsoever. This will be a done deal. It essentially is a done deal. But since the boss is 6,000 miles away, they just have to sit down, go over the contractual details, and iron out any issues that may be there. He says there's no problem whatsoever.
Earlier in the show, we heard Nicole on Juan Pablo Montoya's post-race reaction to dominating but getting that speeding penalty. You ran into some of his crew guys down there.
I know a few of those guys pretty well, and I did speak with them after the race, obviously frustrated. One of them told me it's the first time he's ever wanted to cry in racing. Another one told me they were sitting back there, quote, trying on rings. We had this thing in the bag. Alan?
NASCAR Now lead reporter Marty Smith. Thanks for all the effort. We appreciate it.
You got it.
When NASCAR Now continues, Dale Earnhardt Jr. started 3rd, but he finished 36th. That's generally not a good sign in a race car. We'll talk about Junior's Day at Indy in a moment. Jimmie Johnson, you figure he's probably still celebrating after his win for the 3rd time in the Brickyard 400. Monday Night Baseball presented by Holiday Inn, the Dodgers and Cardinals at 7 Eastern on ESPN. And on Wednesday Night Baseball presented by Smirnoff Ice, Yankees and Rays, ESPN 7 Eastern Wednesday night. Jeff Gordon's efforts to win the Brickyard 400 2009 came up a bit short. Gordon wound up finishing with 9th place money, never really a factor to contend for the lead or for the win.
I think the 48 showed just, you know, what that's all about, you know, and they were very strong. The 5 was strong. You know, I expected Juan Pablo Montoya to be strong too, and they made a little mistake there, but we weren't as strong as we need to be. I thought, you know, our car was good if we could have gotten track position. We just didn't do a good enough job to get ourselves, you know, a car that could drive up through there as well as Jimmy, and we didn't qualify as good as we should have, you know, and that's our fault, and we'll work on that, go to Pocono.
So we check the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series Championship standings. Jimmie Johnson moving past Jeff Gordon into 2nd place in the overall standings. Gordon 3rd, 207 points down from the lead. 1 win where the reseed is concerned after we get through the Richmond race.
Oh, something's wrong with Junior.
And the big plume of smoke.
Oh, man.
Careful getting on the brake. Careful getting on the brake.
Blown engine for Junior. That's too bad. He had a great run going.
Yeah, I think it's my fault. tore the clutch out of it. It wouldn't rev up though, so I don't think that's it.
And Mike Massaro joins us now from out by the Yard of Bricks. He has more on Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s day at Indy. Mike?
Yeah, Alan, it's hard to imagine what made Dale Earnhardt Jr. more nauseous this weekend. The stomach flu he was battling early in the weekend or the way his race ended on Sunday. Now, he was running up in the top 10 most of the afternoon, but a promising day quickly turned to disappointment after a late race pit stop. Well, the motor failed, and he said afterwards he thought he might have over-revved it.
I've had no engine problems all year. Hendrick engines, we don't ever have problems with them. So I'm assuming it was driver or related or air, driver error somewhere around the racetrack. It ain't our fate. It's all in our control. And maybe I could have done something different on that pit stop to left the stall easy or something. I don't feel like I did anything different than I normally do, but we don't break motors for no reason.
And that motor failure sent a ripple effect through the entire Hendrick camp. In fact, Chad Knaus during his post-race press conference said when he saw the 88 have the motor failure, he almost panicked and started to confer with his motor guys and was worried until Rick Hendrick came up to him, comforted him, and said, "We think that it was driver error." Now, as for confirming that, I tried to reach out to some of the folks with the Hendrick Motorsports motor department, and they said that they could not confirm that it was driver error until they got back to Charlotte and tore that motor apart, Alan.
All right, Mike, so 36th place money for Junior here at Indianapolis, but probably some positives he can take away from this?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Dale Earnhardt Jr. said afterwards he was extremely frustrated with the way the day ended, but he could take some positives because with the year they've had, it was good to finally be able to run as strong as they did. Now, he was asked where he thought he might have finished had he been able to go the distance. He said somewhere between 5th and 10th, so obviously that's encouraging. This was a new car built by Lance McGrew, and it's a car they plan to bring to Pocono next week, and as you know, Pocono a lot like Indianapolis, so they expect that maybe they can put this race behind them and put up a good finish next week.
Mike Massaro, thanks for the work. We appreciate it. Let's talk about Dale Earnhardt Jr. What are your thoughts on positives he can take away from his effort at Indy this week?
Well, Al, I really thought it was a good turning point for Dale Earnhardt Jr. this particular weekend. He qualified well. He qualified 3rd. In the practice session, he was 6th. Today, he ran the top 10 throughout the day. And myself, personally, I really don't think that he tore that motor up himself. I just think it failed. I mean, those engines are awful tough, and it didn't sound like he hurt the motor leaving pit road. We had some sound of that during the race today. So I'm kind of in Junior's camp that it's not his fault.
I think it's the first car that he and Lance McGrew have built together and brought out, and they ran well. They ran competitive in the top 10. But, man, I hate to see Junior look so down. He looks so down, blaming it on himself. Man, he's a great driver. He's got to pick it up and move on. They can win some races before the end of the year. It's not the year that he wanted, but, things have taken an upturn. I just hate to see him look so down.
Let's talk about going forward for Junior and this team. Mike talked about how this is the first car that Lance McGrew basically built for Junior from the ground up. Junior's 22nd in points. He's 446 away from the cut for the chase. So he's out. He's not going to make it into the playoffs. Now what do they do from here?
Well, the good thing about it, they blew the engine up, all right, but they didn't hurt the car at all. They can take that same car, which I got a lot of confidence in, which, by the way, was pretty fast. Like I said, 6th fastest in practice. They qualified 3rd with it, put a fresh motor in that baby, clean it up a little bit, take it on the Pocono, and try it again. That's the good thing.
And obviously they built something with speed so that they can duplicate it. Rick Hendrick has got a fantastic car building shop. Great guys. They can duplicate those cars. They found a setup that Junior likes. So they had speed, and that's something that's hard to find in NASCAR when you lose it. So they've got that back. They need to look forward and try and win them some races.
So a promising start, a disappointing finish, but maybe some optimism to latch onto for going forward in the season for the sport's most popular driver, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Coming up, we wrap up our NASCAR Now at the Brickyard coverage with a look back at some of the sights and sounds of Brickyard 2009.
NASCAR Now, brought to you by Captain Morgan Original Spiced Rum. Drink responsibly. Captain's orders.
Couple of news notes. David Newton reports that Jamie McMurray has been informed by Roush Fenway president Jeff Smith that he's free to look for another ride next season. Jeff Gordon's not going to undergo another procedure on his sore back and is going to fight through the pain, according to the AP. And Chip Ganassi told USA Today that Earnhardt Ganassi Racing will fill the seat in the #1 car being vacated by Martin Truex Jr. for next season and will not shut down the team. And don't forget our NASCAR Now Monday Roundtable presented by the Home Depot, 5 Eastern Time Monday on ESPN2. Rusty, Ray, and Brad, we got a few things even still. We're going to further break down about the 16th running of the Brickyard 400.
Like it could be survival here today, buddy. We got a damn race car. No egos today. It's going to be a longevity race.
Within a celebrated castle, on grounds that have for generations turned victory into legacy, a quest for greatness has been unleashed. It is here you will find a battle-tested knight out to defend his motorized reign.
You guys are the best, man. That's all there is to it. Thank you, boys.
With quiet calm and bulletproof confidence, he will take all, or he will take nothing. A fiery captain, leading a new charge upon storied bricks forged from his native soil.
Hey, kitty, come get you some of this.
The prodigy, out to prove his mettle where ancient and modern collide.
I am the leader. Woo-hoo.
Warrior, standing on the edge of untouched glory.
Jeff Gordon, the first 4-time winner of the Brickyard 400.
He steps once more, steely-eyed, into Velocity's breach. Past numbers count for nothing when you enter this man-made canyon, filled with history and jeopardy. What has been true here for 100 years will be true again today. Victory on this legendary ring leaves an everlasting mark. As sure as if it were set in stone.
Well, victory at Indianapolis for this year's running of the Brickyard 400. That was so close for Juan Pablo Montoya. It's so close for Mark Martin, in the hands again of Jimmie Johnson, who takes a third win in this 2009 running of the Brickyard 400. Rusty Ray, a couple of final thoughts. I think one of the things that fans may walk away from this race talking about is a lack of passing. I haven't made up in my mind yet whether there's any more or less in this race than it, well, okay, set aside last year because of the tires, than we normally see at Indianapolis, but certainly one of the things I want to explore in the roundtable. Got a thought there?
Well, yeah, I had a struggle with that this afternoon. Watch all the cars. It was kind of follow the leader. Nobody really complained about their car, but they all said it was really, really hard to pass. I would say another thing I'm thinking about when I go to bed tonight, I'm going to say, my gosh, I feel so bad for Juan Pablo Montoya. What could have been one of the biggest races of his career, and he had it wrapped up and made a mistake in his own part. Ray, it's got to be sickening for him.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And Alan, we didn't see a lot of passing, but I think we've seen more green flag than we're used to here. So it might be time to take a look at maybe doing something with the front of the COT, air dam wise, like the guys have been complaining about. And Rusty, I was thinking about our Champions Roundtable. We said in that roundtable that it was going to take the whole package, that it wasn't going to be just a great driver, a fast car. You were going to have to execute the day without making a mistake, and a mistake was made today. But it also put one of the guys we did talk about, Jimmie Johnson, in position.
Yeah, it really did. Yeah, I remember you saying, Ray, no mistakes whatsoever. You can't have mistakes if you're going to win this race. When it was all said and done, we looked at each other and said, okay, who's going to win this thing? And I think about 4 or 5 of us said Jimmie Johnson. It was just glaring right in our face because they don't make mistakes. He's won this thing twice before. He wrapped it up today. Jimmie Johnson, you can see it coming.
And the button on the day for me is the fact that tires, such a story coming into the weekend after last year's race, no problem at all, though obvious that the combination of last year's race and the economy in this area has NASCAR and the Speedway with some work to do to put some more people back in the seats for next year's Brickyard 400. More discussion on the race on our NASCAR Now Monday Roundtable, 5 Eastern Time on ESPN2. For Ray Evernham and Rusty Wallace, Marty Smith, Nicole Mansky, and Mike Massaro, Alan Bestwick, so long from Indy. Drivers are fired up. It's time to go racing.
My goodness, guys, look what Juan Pablo Montoya has done. I mean, he's led 109 of 117 laps this far. I can't see the scenario changing between now and the next 43 laps.
42 car was too fast on pit road in 2 different segments.
We had this in the bag, and they screw us because I was not speeding.
Here comes Martin on the outside. Does he have enough